Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. And this is the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
This podcast is all about taking action and creating that badass business abundance and life that you want.
Where we share stories, laughs, wins, and epic fails to show you the whole picture of the entrepreneurial journey.
It's not just unicorns and rainbows, people.
Jump on and follow us through this raw and witty roller coaster,
where we get down and dirty and go behind the scenes of life and entrepreneurship.
Get on it,
get over it,
and get after it.
Hey, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
Today, we're going to talk a little bit about our podcast and introduce you to us. How about
exactly.
That?
Let's introduce the world to Lynn and Amanda and why we started the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. I think the first thing we should talk about is that this is actually a book. So if you are just joining us, you found us out of the blue and you have no idea who the heck we are and what we're talking about, the Pursuit of Badasserie started as a book that we co-authored, and we covered so many topics and so many topics we didn't cover that we wanted to keep talking about it. So we started this podcast to address all the things in business that we have come up against in the last 40 plus combined years in entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. And also share new insights and ideas and things that didn't really make it in the book on said topics and a bunch of other topics as well. So we can't wait to hear your feedback and your questions as this podcast continues to evolve. So welcome to our first episode, the introduction of us.
Da, da, da.
Lynn and Amanda, the empire, the beginning. You can say that you were one of the first to see us as we were creating this huge empire.
Yes, it's going to be big. I mean, I don't like to speak about things before they happen, but big.
Yeah.
Big.
Huge. All right. So let's start with why a podcast? Why do you want to do it? So we said kind of more the logistics, but why do you want to do a podcast?
Well, I can tell you why I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to listen to myself talk all day long. I know that that's one of the things you have these podcasts. You're like, oh my God, these people just like to hear themselves talk. That is absolutely the opposite of what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want to have my face out there in the world, or my voice for that matter. The reason I'm doing this is much the same reason that I do anything. And it's because I want to help people have better lives and have less stress in their lives and realize the potential that they have, because I think so many people shy away from the possibility of what they could be, what they could become. And it's there. It's like that shred of what they want to be, but they're too afraid to go for it because there's a lot of risk involved with particularly being an entrepreneur. So I thought the reason I wanted to do this podcast is to dive into these topics of entrepreneurship and how you can sort of get out of your own way. And this is a great opportunity. And obviously I wanted to work more with you. Why wouldn't I want to work more with you? We wrote a book together. Yeah, we did.
Now, another book on its way. I would agree with you 100%. It is about the ripple effect and having more access to our insights and our encouragement, our triumphs and trials and complete failures. We're going to be raw and down to the nitty gritty on this. And I'm really excited about that. And also, I can remember a while ago when I was a director of BNI and I would always do presentations and all these different chapters. And I remember somebody saying, I would pay you if you messaged me on a daily basis with your wisdom or with your inspiration or positive note. And, that always rang in my ear, and to be consistent about that through the podcast, to be able to give back, to give motivation. I know I love YouTube, and that's why this is also a video, not just a podcast, which we were talking about before we got on.
Yes.
But to be able to give those little snippets of humor, entrepreneurial advice, life advice, motivation, even some action items to do and tips and tricks. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I want to dive into from the start is, why should anybody listen to us? So Lynn, tell us a little bit about what you do in this business sphere and why anybody should have anything to do with you.
Yes, we forgot to introduce ourselves, except for I'm Lynn. I'm currently in Thailand. I have a nomadic heart and soul. I love traveling, and I just chose to stay in Thailand for a little bit during the pandemic. But my background is, my title, I would say, is an entrepreneurial development strategist. I help entrepreneurs across the globe get shit done, break glass ceilings, shatter them, and really create and I know this can be a cliche like term, but really look at the scalability, the sellability, and the stability of it, right? So how can we create foundations in which you can grow or at least be stable on? So that sustainability as well. Yeah. And I love working with coaches and consultants to help them develop the entrepreneurship side of their business, because a lot of times businesses are great. And this is true, especially with SMEs, or excuse me, solopreneurs and small enterprises, is that somebody is good at what they do, but yet they don't know how to necessarily lead a team or run a business. And I've been in the business. I've started and sold businesses across 3 continents over the last 20 years. I've bootstrapped all my businesses. I've also been on boards, international boards for nonprofits, or even COO of a global organization for a while that we were selling franchises. So have lots of experience. Yeah, that's a little bit about my business as far as personal. Are we going to get into that after?
You can go ahead and get into personal. Yeah. Go for it.
So personal, I am currently, I have 3 kids that I've raised, but I have a stepson as well. So 4 in total, 8 grandkids. Yes, I have 8 grandkids. I was a young mom, and my kids were young moms, and the stepson also a young parent. I have the spiritual side as well as the nitty gritty. I love to say, like, the duality, right? So I'm definitely big vision, and I can see the potential and the possibilities and see that ethereal kind of picture, but also boots on the ground, like how to make it happen. And so, yeah, that's that I apply that in my life as well. Highly intuitive, spiritual-ish people skills. Yeah, I think that's good for now. You'll get a sense of who I am.
Sure enough, I'm sure that will come out because we have no filter often. So it's interesting that you talk about that sort of duality of yourself, because I also feel like I fall in that duality from a personal side, because I have this like extreme introverted, mind my own business, don't everybody bother me, I don't want to talk to you side. And then like international performer, athlete, go out there and be in front of hundreds of people and doesn't even affect me, teaching public speaking. So it's just definitely this enigma of who I am to the world, because you'll definitely see me being a complete ham and doing plenty of stuff on stage and being ridiculous. And then you'll see me just quiet, don't talk to me. I'm an introvert. I don't want to be seen in public. So it's quite the dichotomy of personalities. I am definitely a recovering perfectionist. I'm the youngest of 4 children, and I have a wonderful family. I grew up in a very wonderful home. My parents are still married after 53 years, and I have 4 degrees. I'm very OCD. All those things, kind of all those boxes that you click. And yet I think it's interesting, and you didn't mention this, but I know it, so I'm going to say it. We have very different childhood upbringings, but we still have a lot of the same business ethics, business morals, just the drive that we have towards different sides of our businesses is very similar, even though we have extremely different upbringings and backgrounds. I think that's very interesting in just that proof that, it's that whole concept of nature versus nurture, that it's not all nurture, and that you can rise above any challenge, great or small, and there's plenty of things that life has, plenty of things that we both had to deal with in our lives. I'm not saying that I just live this beautiful cookie cutter existence, because that is so far from the truth. However, I think that both of us just chose to rise above all those adversities and have just come out like gangbusters. But from a professional side, unless, did you want to touch anything on your family side there?
I mean,
you don't have to.
Yeah, well, no, I don't mind. I mean, this is all about the podcast, right? So for those of you who don't know, and you'll learn about this, I grew up very colorful, very abusive household. I was adopted. I did grow up with my biological mom in my life. I met my I was adopted when I was in kindergarten. I can remember when they came in and said my name was changed. So I was adopted by my dad and raised by his family. But it was a very abusive environment. And, my parents were young adults who didn't have a great upbringing either, and who had a lot of heartache and a lot of bad things happened to them, and they just didn't know, how to deal with that as parents as well. And so, I don't hold any resentment or any anger, but definitely it was a rough upbringing. I often say I'm the lucky one, because out of all of our cousins, like, even though we got put into, I was just reading a post yesterday, somebody called it an orphanage, which it used to be back in the day. We got put into like a boarding school / group home orphanage-ish thing for children coming from really broken homes. My cousins though got taken out of the homes, put into foster care, and to see like their life trajectory at this point, like they're pretty much all drug addicts, and that could have been my life. And so you'll learn a lot more, but yes, a very different life.
Yes.
Very different.
We have very different upbringings, but we still align on a lot of those key business topics and just personal topics. We're great friends, and it's just goes to show you that you aren't your circumstances.
No, so, you choose. Your circumstances are a part of you. You are not your circumstances. Absolutely.
But from a professional standpoint, I have been a serial entrepreneur for over 20 years. I have worked for quote unquote the man. I have had real jobs, as people call them. I was a television producer for many years, and I absolutely love that job. I'm still friends with every single person I would say nearly every single person that I worked with there. There are a few exceptions, and any of you listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. However, I'm not naming names on the podcast.
I love a good inside joke.
I'm just saying. But I loved that job. Deciding to become an entrepreneur wasn't because I hated working for someone else. And it wasn't because I couldn't do the social world of working for somebody else or having a boss, quote unquote. But I have owned my businesses. I bought and sold businesses. I have several partners across multiple states and countries, and I worked internationally. I just love business. I love the whole world of it. And I remember in college thinking that I should get a business degree because that's what you're supposed to do. Like, you're supposed to get a business degree and like learn how to golf and play tennis. And like, that's what I was supposed to learn how to do if I was going to make it in the world. But I hated all my business classes. I hated golf. I suck at tennis. It's like full contact tennis. It's horrible at it. So I didn't meet any of those criteria that I thought was what the business world was supposed to be as a woman trying to break into the business industry. So I just completely decided I wasn't going to do business and did 4 other degrees and completely different things. But I know nothing you would think that would make me any money, but it's fine. I still
book.
For sure. I have never used my degrees more than I have in the last year. One of my degrees is in English, creative writing, and literature. So I definitely use that degree quite a lot. And copy editing internships, I use quite a few of those experiences in the book. But I never thought I was going to do business. And it ended up being a passion of mine. And now I work as a business consultant, and I've been doing that, not even paid. I've been doing it not paid for many years, and then doing it now. Now I'm paid to do it. But before, I was just doing it because I loved finding the problems in a business and then turning people's stresses into like productive work environments. And I'm all about finding the money where there isn't any and turning businesses around. It's my favorite thing to do, is to get you from kind of a ho-hum business into a profitable business that you can actually be happy about. So it's a passion.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd agree. And I think that that's, one, the benefit of this podcast is we're going to be sharing all of our, like I said, like our trials and our triumphs and our passion. And I think that that's also what really, there's a couple of things that really set us apart from others around us is we work at high speeds. Like we get, I was having the conversation yesterday. They're like, good God, like, you accomplish like something we accomplished like in the last week, Amanda and I will check off the list and people are like, we didn't even, oh, it was a sales call. I was having a sales call. I was like, yeah, just this week I did and I helped clients with XYZ. And they were like, what? And they just like couldn't wrap their mind around it. So you're going to hear like us like breaking down of how we get so much done. Yes, we do like have this drive and this inner passion, which can be learned. You can train yourself to have that, as well as like actually what our hacks are and where to let go and where to delegate. And you'll be hearing it in real time. So these first few episodes are definitely going to follow like the book topics. However, we have lots that we can say and help on and guide. And I'm so excited. And from similar angles, but also very different angles where you're very task oriented a lot of times. Yes. And I am too. However, I definitely have that people aspect as well. And so we complement each other on, I don't think we found anything that we really conflict either, but I also think
don't jinx us. Don't jinx us.
But you know what that's true. Knock on some damn wood. But you know where I think and you know where I feel like that comes from is that our level of respect for one another are also our evolved emotional intelligence, because we understand that just because we might not agree, there's a couple of phases there, like pick our battles, like the book cover, pick our battle. And
right, fool.
Yes, we'll talk about that later, but pick our battles, but also like understand like, okay, is that as important to me as something else? Right. Which is kind of the pick the battle, but also we can talk through it and like come to a compromise. Right. So I find, and I love that dynamic about our relationship. However, it's because we've done a lot of self-work and the level of respect and honesty and transparency that we have with one another and our agreements with one another that I think a lot of people, just if you're taking that away, because even the sales call that I had yesterday, it's a newly forming partnership. They don't have an agreement. They don't have like a roles, right? They don't have an understanding. And even when you do have everything, we'll call it the prenuptial of going into business together, then they lose focus of how to act and engage and whose role is what, or like when to give and how to have that conversation. Because also one thing that we are not for one another is each other's yes people, right? And so I feel like people are going to learn a lot from that aspect as well, not just the words that are coming out of our mouth, but the dynamic in which we're able to create things and work together and get shit done.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And we just have a very solid communication style with one another. And I think that really makes a huge difference when you are collaborating as much as we are collaborating and in the same field. I mean, we work in the same field, but I don't consider us to be in any way, shape, or form really competitors. And I think that's unique in this sphere of, in this sort of competitive nature that our business is. But I also want to talk, you talked about how we are, that I'm more task oriented and you're more people oriented, which is very true. Anybody who knows me knows I'm all about like getting stuff done. I'm not necessarily, I don't want to say I bulldoze people, but I definitely have a history of bulldozing people just to get through those tasks, because tasks are very important to me and just my personality. And in the spirit of that, I want to address our podcast itself. We are going to make more task oriented in that for your benefit. We're going to make all of our podcasts under 30 minutes, under 20 if we can, because we really want to be able to get as much information into this podcast as we can and then get you on with your day. So this is like a small commute. If all of our Hawaii people who only have a 2-minute commute, you hopefully will be able to get most of this podcast in before you head into work or whatever the circumstances
when you're
may
working
be.
out.
Now, while you're working out, just get it on and get over that whole thing. So we would just want you to have the opportunity to get all the information you can in a short amount of time. We work very quickly, so we want to pull out all the stops here, just make sure that you are also getting this information quickly too. I know people are very busy, so we won't be shooting the SHIT. We're going to be just getting right into it every time.
Don't use that word. Yes. So speaking of time, it is our time. And just to close, we are always going to give you some kind of action item on the topic that we spoke about. And so today we're going to say, buy our book if you haven't bought our book, but also share a podcast with entrepreneurs or individuals who might be thinking that they want to be an entrepreneur or just have the entrepreneurial spirit that wants just some guidance, because we're going to talk about business and life and probably kids and women shit and men shit and all kinds of stuff. So go ahead and share this podcast with those that you think that would get a kick out of us.
Absolutely. I didn't even mention I am also a mom. I just completely forgot to talk about my kid because I'm very task oriented. So I forgot about the whole people. I have a young son. You're grandma. I'm a young son. So we have all the facets of that. That's terrible. You want to think about me being more task oriented. I didn't even think about my kid. Whoops.
But do not call me a grandma. Anybody.
You're right. You're a Nona. You're a Nona.
On this podcast, I will throat punch you. All right. All right. So we're going to sign off today. Amanda, if you want to close this out.
Until next time, folks, let's get after it.